I didn't know that she had died. My interrogation and loss of sanity occurred about 6 to 7 weeks after her death. I found out a year later, when I was in much better mental health, that that had occurred. And it was so similar, and the doctor was, there was the same doctor involved in both our cases. I tried to do many things to heal. I don't know if any of you have known someone who's had a breakdown, a psychotic break. You definitely are not here with the rest of us. You are definitely seeing things that others don't see, and you might know that they don't see them, so you have to keep quiet about it. That's how I got to drive a car. And every year I did a little something on the anniversary of that for my healing. And one year I wrote under a pseudonym named Catherine the story, which was the nutshell of my memoir. And I wrote the story of Catherine, of how they drove me insane and did nothing to help me arrange it back into life. In fact, if I was ever dumped, I was pretty dumped. So I posted that. My experience in intelligence knew that, okay, it's on the internet. They're about reading it now. Okay, let's see, who's my first phone call? And my first phone call was the person that I expected. And I said, okay, I'll have lunch with you. And his first question to me, or one of his first questions to me, was, how often do you speak to Arnie Lerma? At that time, Arnie Lerma was target number one within the church and for the church. Now, what wasn't known was that I didn't send it to Arnie as myself. I do know Arnie, and Arnie knows it was me now, but at the time, I just felt he was a very safe person, and I wanted to have it put out by him. Over the years, I've written my memoir for my own personal health, but I've gotten responses from people. I recently went to Boston to a librarian's show and put together just about a third of the emails and information that I've gotten from individuals that have gone through similar cases of mine, worldwide. Families of suicides, families now of murderers who were Scientologists, who have now become murderers. I would get these one at a time and just put them in the file folder. And when I sat down to go through them all, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned that this mental abuse had been going on worldwide, systemic to Scientology. As having worked with intelligence, I am more than readily aware of the consequences that could befall me, but I am even more aware that this has got to stop. This has got to stop. These are people. There was one woman that after a special handling, she found that she couldn't drive on the freeway for a year because she kind of had this suicidal thing of, well, what would happen if I just turned into that other car? Other people that were really, really traumatized. I became friends with a gentleman over the phone who had a psychotic break. He was in Florida, and his name is Greg Bashaw, Death of a Scientologist. He was from Chicago. He had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on Scientology. He was on the upper levels. He had quit jobs that Scientology didn't agree with. I mean, $200,000 a year to quit that job is pretty much dedicated to Scientology. In my book, I have the last letter that he wrote to the head of the Scientology organization in Florida. His wife gladly let me print it. And I didn't change a word, and there will be some Scientology words in there that some of you might not understand. When she was in negotiations for settlement with the Church of Scientology, they caught her without any lawyer or friend or person, and at a very down spot, offered her a pittance of money, and I don't know the figure because that is confidential, but I know it's a pittance because she's still in danger of losing her home, and her husband had paid Scientology over $300,000, mostly on credit cards that she was still liable for. When she was given the form to sign, there was a line that said, "I will never speak to the press or write a book about what happened to my husband." And she refused to sign it. And she said, "I might write." And she will come out on her own and have her own words to say. But the Scientologist that was giving her the pittance of a check said, "Oh, that's okay. I'll just cross out that line because who would want to hear about your husband anyway? Who would ever care or read about the death of a Scientologist?" So he just crossed it off. I hope you people today can relay the fact that people are dying. People are dying. People are going psychotic, which is, as Greg and I talked on one of our phone calls before he passed away, we understood why Christopher Reeve kept living, because he had his mind. If you do not have your mind, you do not have a life. And Scientology, the number of people that have just written to me or on the internet or responded to my book of, "Oh my God, I never told anybody, but 15 years ago I was psychotic and I didn't tell anybody. And I somehow brought myself back and out of it." That's why I speak. It's still happening. When was that murder? A week ago? The Scientology boss?
No, that was around December.
It was about a month ago. Okay, we have Jeremy, a psychotic child of Scientologists, refused psychiatric help, who stabbed his mother to death 77 times. This is happening all over the world. I have one communication from just a woman in Copenhagen who just off the top of her head, I swear she listed 20 people that were dead that she personally knew. And they were dead because of this group. I think about how does that happen? How come I did not run out of that counseling room when I knew they were really, really interrogating me and driving me to the brink of insanity? And I come back to the very first course I ever took in Scientology, which now the upper index have been separated out, and they're called the training routines. And the upper index are the upper levels of them. And everybody talks, part of it is the talking to the ashtray. Most of you may have heard about talking to the ashtray and lifting the ashtray. I think Tom Cruise even had somebody here lifting an ashtray. But the basics of that policy called upper index is control. And control to the fact of physical control. That you are in physical control of the body of the person that you are in front of. Your chair is placed strategically in front of the door so they can't get out. If they do get out, which I've seen some get out, there's a code word. They're called HCO bring order. And that means every able-bodied person in the vicinity is to tackle that person.